This is the Department of Toxic Substance Control meeting for the cleanup or the proposed cleanup activities at the TO Ranch site in Thousand Oaks. My name is Crystal Jimenez, and I'm the DTSC Public Participation Specialist assigned to the project. The meeting is being recorded, and by joining, you are agreeing to be recorded. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. This meeting is scheduled from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. The purpose of today's meeting is to provide you with more information about the proposed cleanup option at the TO Ranch, to respond to your questions, and accept public comment for the open public comment period. The comment period is open now and will close on December 30th. If you would like to submit your comments outside of this meeting, please contact Shauna Coupland by using her contact information on this slide. Shauna is the DTSC project manager and will be delivering tonight's presentation. The presentation is about 30 minutes, and we will follow with the question and answer or Q&A period. We will also allow for the submission of formal comments following the Q&A period. DTSC will not provide an answer to the formal comments at this time. Tonight, we're also joined by Jose Diaz, the unit chief with the DTSC. When entering the meeting, you were placed on mute. We ask that you remain on mute during the presentation. During the Q&A portion of the meeting, or if you're having difficulties, you can raise your hand or type your question in the chat. You can use the chat feature throughout the presentation or type your questions and comments to us. If you're joining us by phone, you can press *6 to unmute during the Q&A period. Please wait to be called upon after unmuting. Please wait to be called upon after unmuting. We will repeat the instructions at the top of the Q&A section. Lastly, please know we are hosting this meeting from different locations. We request that you bear with us if there are any technical issues. We sincerely appreciate your patience, understanding, and cooperation in making this a successful meeting. I will now invite presenter Shauna Coupland, the DTSC project manager, to begin our presentation. Shauna?
Thank you, Crystal. My name is Shauna Coupland. I am an environmental scientist and project manager for DTSC. I first want to start off by talking about what the Department of Toxic Substances Control, or DTSC, is. DTSC is a part of the California Environmental Protection Agency, which includes multiple different agencies that regulate everything from pesticides to air quality to groundwater to how hazardous wastes are recycled and handled. Specifically, DTSC is the state regulatory agency responsible for the oversight of the cleanup of hazardous waste sites or sites where hazardous substances are present and pose a potential risk to the human health or the environment. It is our mission to protect California's people, communities, and environment from toxic substances, to enhance economic vitality by restoring contaminated land, and to compel manufacturers to make safer consumer products. DTSC employs scientists, engineers, toxicologists, and many more trained staff to support these decisions. When making decisions regarding sites, DTSC looks at concentrations of hazardous chemicals in soil, soil gas, and groundwater when necessary. Now you know who we are, but why are we here? The last thing we want to do is to step into your community and remediate these sites without listening to your opinions. As a resident of Thousand Oaks, I understand that you may have concerns, and I hope this presentation addresses them. We value your input and will take it into consideration in the decision-making process. The property owner is proposing to clean up contaminants left on the property by a former Kmart and dry cleaner. The plan for this cleanup is described in a draft response plan. The response plan contains all of the information on how the site will be cleaned up and what measures are going to be taken to ensure the health and safety of the workers, the neighbors, and the future occupants of the property. DTSC will ensure that the property owner complies with all the relevant and applicable requirements of other agencies. A California Environmental Quality Act addendum to the Environmental Impact Report was also completed to ensure that the project does not pose an adverse threat to the environment. The original environmental impact report is available at the link provided on Sequinet. All of these documents are available for review on our website called Envirostor, at the DTSC Chatsworth Field Office, and at the Westlake Village Library. Additionally, if you would like to see any of the documents, please reach out to either Crystal or I, and we can verify that you get an opportunity to review them. Now I would like to talk briefly about how DTSC provides oversight of the investigation and cleanup of contaminated properties. Moving forward, I will use the term remediation when referring to cleanup. In 2023, the property owner and DTSC entered into an agreement under the California Land Reuse and Revitalization Act for the site. Under this agreement, DTSC oversaw several investigations that identified the nature and extent of contamination at the site. Once these investigations were completed, DTSC verified that they were sufficient to fully understand the risks posed by the contamination to the community and environment, and that it was appropriate to develop a response plan. We are currently in the public comment period phase of the process. We'll go into more detail about this plan and how we got here in the following slides. The site is located south of US Route 101, bound by Hampshire Road to the east and Foothill Drive to the west and south. All buildings on the property have now been demolished and the site is vacant. Now I'd like to take you through the history of the site. Prior to 1969, the property was undeveloped land. In 1969 and 1970, a Kmart and other commercial businesses, including a dry cleaner, were constructed. The Kmart operated a garden center, photo processing center, and auto service center with hydraulic lifts and had an underground storage tank. The dry cleaner operated from 1970 to 1973. The Kmart and other businesses remained until 2004 when businesses started to become vacant. A restaurant at the southeastern portion of the property remained until 2020 when it was also closed. In 2023, all structures, foundations, and paving were demolished. Starting in 2017, multiple rounds of environmental investigation were conducted at the site. These investigations identified contaminants in soil, soil vapor, and groundwater. Site contamination is consistent with the use of chemicals by businesses on the site at the time. Contaminants of concern on the property are related mostly to the Kmart Auto Service Center in the northern area of the property and the solvents used by the former dry cleaner located on the southern portion of the site. These investigations found volatile organic carbons and hydrocarbons in soil vapor in concentrations exceeding the residential soil vapor screening levels. Highest concentrations of tetrachloroethene and benzene are limited to the vicinity of the former dry cleaner, as well as beneath the former auto service center. In soil, cadmium and cobalt are present in concentrations that exceed the DTSC residential screening levels in limited locations. Investigations of groundwater found PCE and benzene above EPA drinking water maximum contaminant levels and DTSC tap water screening levels. The draft response plan for the site is designed to address all of this contamination. Now I'll talk more about the contents of the response plan. Response plans present the proposals to remediate the site and reflect how the decision was made. In addition to identifying the proposed remediation alternative, they also evaluate other potential alternatives and explain the reasons why the selected one was chosen and is the most appropriate. As part of this process, public input and comments must be considered before the plan can be finalized. Lastly, response plans establish remedial action objectives, including cleanup levels and standards, and the time frame for completing cleanup. DTSC uses its regulatory authority to verify that all of these interpretations are correct and that the cleanup levels and standards are appropriate. For this response plan, 3 alternatives for cleanup were considered. The first alternative considered was to take no action, which is considered to provide a baseline comparison to other remedial alternatives. The no action alternative does not include the removal of contaminants or the implementation of institutional controls or engineering controls at the site. The second alternative considered was to install vapor intrusion mitigation systems in the sub-slab of proposed buildings and to include land use controls and an operation and maintenance plan. A vapor intrusion mitigation system would be incorporated into the design of the building foundations to provide an additional physical barrier with passive venting to further inhibit the migration of volatile organic carbons into indoor air of the future site buildings. A land use covenant is essentially a document recorded with the county that states that the property can only be used for specific uses and not for sensitive uses such as schools, daycares, hospitals, etc. An operation and maintenance plan details the components installed at the site related to the vapor intrusion mitigation system and provides a plan for how the system will be operated, maintained, and monitored to ensure it is working as intended to protect indoor air against the potential exposure to volatile organic carbons in the subsurface. The third alternative includes installing a vapor intrusion mitigation system, soil vapor extraction systems, targeted soil excavations, a land use covenant, and specific operation and maintenance plans. The response plan concluded that the third alternative would be the best and most appropriate plan for the site. Here I will explain the selected remedy in more detail. 2 soil vapor extraction systems are proposed to be installed on the site, first in the southern portion of the site centered around the contamination from the former dry cleaner. The system will be tested to confirm its effectiveness, and a full-scale design will be submitted to DTSC for the southern soil vapor extraction system, and another to be installed in the north of the property to target contamination beneath the former Kmart. Once the systems are installed, an operation and maintenance plan will be used to monitor the system's performance and long-term effectiveness. Soils containing cadmium and cobalt will be excavated to depths of up to 10 feet to remove contamination. About 200 cubic yards of soil will be excavated and disposed off-site to a licensed facility or safely reused for industrial purposes. Vapor intrusion mitigation systems are to be installed with each of the proposed buildings. These systems are designed to form a barrier in the subslab of the buildings to minimize soil vapors from entering buildings and affecting indoor air quality. This includes installation of an impervious membrane and passive venting systems. Soil vapor and groundwater samples will be taken to confirm the effectiveness of the soil vapor extraction systems. A groundwater monitoring plan is also proposed to confirm cleanup of volatile chemicals throughout the site. Finally, a land use covenant will be drafted by DTSC and recorded with the Ventura County Recorder's Office to limit the future use of the property. In the next 2 slides, I will briefly describe how soil vapor extractions and vapor intrusion mitigation systems work. This image shows how a soil vapor extraction system will work to remove contaminated soil vapor. Soil vapor extraction creates a vacuum in the porous spaces between the soil particles and the subsurface. Soil vapor extraction wells are installed in and around contaminated areas and then connected by PVC pipes to a vacuum blower and above ground treatment system. The vacuum pulls the contaminated vapors into the treatment system with granular activated carbon filters, where the contamination is trapped and concentrated. The resulting clean treated air is vented out. The filter units can be further processed or disposed of at appropriate facilities. This image shows how a vapor intrusion mitigation system works. Contaminated soil vapors will first be removed to the lowest concentrations reasonably achievable by the soil vapor extraction systems. The sub-slab vapor barriers and venting systems on each building will minimize the potential for any remaining vapor to enter the building's breathable airspace. The image on the lower right is an example of the vapor barrier installed below the building's concrete slab. This figure shows generally where the soil vapor extraction wells will be installed, as represented as orange dots. In the north of the site, near areas of elevated contamination beneath the former auto service center, and in the south, near the former dry cleaner. Areas of targeted soil excavation are boxed in red outlines. All the gray boxed areas are proposed building locations. During remediation activities, the work will be performed according to site-specific plans. These plans include a health and safety plan, which ensures the workers operating on the site are safe, a soil management plan, which verifies that activities are not impacting anybody off-site or the environment and ensures the proper handling and management of soils. Additionally, the active work areas will be fenced with signage including contact information. Dust and air will be monitored throughout all phases of remediation and construction. This air monitoring will ensure that dust impacts from the excavation are not affecting off-site areas. Should concentrations of dust from the site begin to exceed safe levels, work will be stopped and additional dust management measures will be implemented until the site is in compliance. Water or non-toxic soil stabilizer will be sprayed, and soil covers will be used to control dust at the site during implementation of the response plan. Truckloads will also be covered with their tires cleaned, and trucks will be inspected prior to leaving the site to verify that soils aren't being trucked out or carried out of the site. Trucks will be staged when exiting the site to minimize impacts to local traffic. Here are a few pictures of what you can expect to see while remediation activities take place. Excavators and loading trucks will be present during soil excavation. Water trucks, like what are seen on the top center, will be used to spray soils to limit soil becoming airborne during excavation. Drill rigs will be present for the installation of soil vapor extraction wells and groundwater monitoring wells, as pictured on the top right. In the bottom right, we see wheel cleaning equipment that ensures soils are not being tracked out of the site via the trucks leaving. Trucks hauling the contaminated soil will take a defined route that minimizes trips through residential areas. This figure depicts one of the routes included in the response plan for transporting contaminated soil. This route takes trucks on Highway 23 and 118 to a non-hazardous waste landfill. About 10 truckloads of soil will be hauled. Trucks exiting the site will be staged as needed to minimize impacts to local traffic. This public meeting tonight does not represent the end of our outreach to the community regarding this project. We will issue and post work notices with contact information for myself and other representatives prior to the startup of remediation. I will continue to manage the site, and Crystal will also be available to hear and manage any community concerns. Now you've heard all about the plan and what we're going to do, and here are the next steps. DTSC will continue to receive comments on the response plan through December 30th. Following closure of the comment period, DTSC may make revisions to the document and will also respond to the comments submitted. Once the document is finalized, DTSC will approve the response plan for implementation. The cleanup work is anticipated to begin in the spring of next year. Other construction work may commence simultaneously to remediation. Work notices will be sent out as it is scheduled. You can submit comments in several different ways. One way is to type comments into the chat during this Zoom meeting. Another way is to make a verbal comment during the formal comment submission session at the end of this presentation. Additionally, you can mail comments using the form attached to the community update that was mailed out to the community, or you can email comments to myself or Crystal. All comments must be received by December 30th to be considered. DTSC will not issue a final determination regarding the work plans before all comments received during the comment period are considered. We will evaluate all the comments received and respond to them. The documents mentioned and presented are available for review online on Envirostor, provided in the link, or in the Westlake Village Library and Chatsworth DTSC office. Crystal and I can be contacted via phone or email as well to provide any further information you need.
Thank you, Shauna. Okay, so now we will begin the question and answer portion of the meeting. Please remain on mute until you're called upon. If you have a question, please raise your hand. This function can be found on the toolbar at the bottom of the Zoom screen, or you can type it in the chat. Manuel, do we have anything in the chat?
We don't have any questions in the Q and answer feature or the chat right now.
Okay. Anybody with their hand raised?
No.
Okay. And we didn't have anybody call in, right?
That's correct. No one called in.
I see 2 questions.
You see 2 questions? I
We
don't.
just got one. Clint, would you like to make your comment, or would you like us to read your comment? You can unmute if you want to make your comment or state your question. I can go ahead and read it then. The first question that we have, one of 2, is, I might have missed this part. How long is the project estimated to run? Question mark. Second question, how exactly do the dry cleaning chemicals get into the ground?
The solvents from dry cleaning activities can leak through pipes. They can cause some corrosion. They can also be spilled onto the surface and leak into the ground.
And the first question was, how long is the project estimated to run?
This is Jose Diaz. So the actual cleanup, the excavation should take a few days, right? For the excavation to excavate contaminated soil and dispose of that. The soil vapor extraction system is probably take 18 to 24 months. And, it would all depend and really on how efficient the system is. And there'll be periods where it may be shut down to do what we call a rebound test. And, so overall, we believe the estimated time for completing the cleanup to reach the cleanup goals is about 24 months.
And I think Clint didn't have a chance to see the unmute option, so I just allow him to speak up if you wanted to if you needed more information, Clint.
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. So the filtration system you say that might go as long as 24 months. Is that going to be there, and is construction going to start on the project during that time?
Yes. We often integrate. What we want to do is, integrate the infrastructure of the soil vapor extraction system with the construction, right? And they're pretty creative as to how they integrate that. They may put these pipes like next to a building, and it looks like a rain gutter kind of thing, right? So, and of course, that they can put it it's going to be underground if they need to. And yeah, it will be, of course, it has to be kept secure. So, to prevent any vehicles or workers from running into it. So that's also important to keep in mind, that the way that is constructed, and if it's going to be there for a long time, they have to secure it. Because the last thing you want to do is to have the system running with like a broken conduit kind of thing. So yeah, that it can be integrated with the new construction, and that is part of the plan to do that.
Cool, thank you. One more question on that. So I'm guessing that the old dry cleaning building or dry cleaning business and Kmart are not paying for all of this. So who ends up paying for this?
The developer is paying for this.
Wow. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much for this presentation and answering all my questions. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Clint. Okay.
And Silvana, I just gave you a feature to be able to come out of mute if you would like to ask your question to the mic.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm just curious why the investigation was done in the first place in 2017. How did it start? Is it just part of, well, anyway, I'll let you answer.
Yes. So anytime, in the real estate business with commercial properties, they do what we call a phase one environmental site assessments. And the purpose of those environmental site assessments, first of all, they're required by investors or banks because they obviously want to know what they're buying, right? So in that phase one in environmental site assessment, they'll identify areas of concern. Well, dry cleaners are a very popular area of concern, because the majority of them have problems with managing their waste, right? Or also with the equipment. It can, the machines can break and they can leak underground, and they can leak for many years and you don't know, because the dry cleaning chemicals themselves, they're not like gasoline or natural gas that you can right away detect it and say, oh my God, that's nasty, or that smells toxic. The dry cleaning chemicals smell like perfume, right? So they can go for a long time. So then the phase ones, they identify these areas of concern. And if they identified an area of concern, then the potential property buyer does an investigation to ensure that there's no releases. And if there's releases, then they have to determine the nature and extent of the contamination of those releases. So that's why it takes a while. A lot of times we run into legal issues where you have an operator that operate, or someone that leased the property and caused all this contamination. And of course, the property owner is trying to get them to pay for the investigation and cleanup. So it can take a while between investigations, and it can take a while between cleanup. So that is frequently what we find with old releases. Obviously nowadays, there's better management practices. There's a lot more regulations on the handling and storage and disposal of hazardous chemicals. But most of the releases that we're dealing with are 30, 40, 50 years old.
Yeah, from the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for answering that. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Silvana. Okay, I see Clint has his hand up again. I'm going to mute you.
So, sorry for all the questions. Thanks. Appreciate it. And you might have said that it's been a long day. So is there, assuming that this project gets approved, is there like an estimation of when construction might begin again? And because I know people are going to ask me, it's like, oh, so you went to this meeting. Well, when's it going to be built? So if you could give me, some answer in that direction.
Yeah. So the state, we are overseeing obviously the cleanup, right? And there'll be construction work to install to do the excavation of the contaminated soil, and then there'll be a little bit of construction to install the soil vapor extraction wells. But the actual construction project, the redevelopment project, is also scheduled to start next year. So I believe probably around the middle of the year, in the spring or early summer, there'll be a lot more activity. And I believe construction duration is probably going to go on for maybe 10 to 12 months. And we can verify that duration of that. We do have folks from from the consultant working on for the developer. But again, this is the construction side of things is well, based on other projects. That's what we estimate that, because we have other projects similar size, and we think that construction will take about 10 to 12 months.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, I don't see any other questions or hands raised. So we will move on to the official public comment session. So do any of you want to make or want to submit a formal comment for DTSC's consideration? If you do, you may do so. You can type it in, or I can unmute you so you can speak. Just raise your hand or let me know. Okay. I don't think we have any. Manuel, do you see anything?
No, we don't have
Any
anything
chats?
on the chat or no anything else in the Q&A.
Okay. So this concludes our presentation for this evening. Thank you for your interest and for participating. If you are unable to share your question or your comment, please email or mail them by December 30th to Shauna Kuplin or myself. Thank you again and stay safe.